What's happening, YouTube? It's your boy Kite, and I'm back with another Power System crossover video. You know the deal. Maybe you don't, but now you know. So it is what it is. Now, hit the like button for me. Show some love. Don't be hating. You already know. Get yourself some good karma. It's free. Okay? If you like these type of videos, like the video. If you like the character I'm doing, like the video. And subscribe if you want to continue to see content like this. Yeah, so show some love. Hit the like button, subscribe if you want to continue to see it. Alright, to be honest with you, I didn't even want to make this video for real. Why? Not because I don't like making these videos, because obviously I do, or else I wouldn't make them, but because I don't like the character that I chose. I'm gonna keep it real with you. Don't get mad at me. I don't like Ichigo. I never have, never will, and nothing's gonna change that. Don't get mad at me for my opinion. That's just how I feel. I don't get upset about the characters y'all like, so don't get mad at me for not liking some character. Here's how I feel about Ichigo before we even get into the video, just so you know. I'm gonna not let my biases seep in because I still gave him a cold ass ability, so don't think I'm gonna hoe him. I'm not. But I feel like Kubo Sensei, when he was writing Bleach, wrote the plot. He wrote everything out, what was gonna happen. He had a good idea, wrote all that. He wrote the power system, you know, Kido, Hado, all that stuff, Zanpakuto, Asauchi, Bankai, Shikai. He did all that stuff first and then was like, oh shit, like, I need a character for the story. I need a main character. I'll just do this. That's how Ichigo as a character feels to me. Nothing really significant about him. Didn't really work for his powers. You already know the deal. But yeah, I'm not a fan of him. But when I was making this ability, I made a little bit of it, and then I decide who was a good character for this ability. Ichigo is the only one that fit the script, so I was like, all right, we'll throw him in there. Even though reluctantly, I could have chose other people, but let's give Ichigo his respect. Well, let's give Bleach his respect. I don't gotta respect Ichigo for nothing. If you don't like me because I don't like Ichigo, fuck you. I don't know what to tell you other than that. But all right, let's get into the video. So today we're going to be giving Ichigo Kurosaki from Bleach a NEN ability from Hunter x Hunter. We're giving him a Hatsu. Alright, so when we're giving someone a Hatsu, when we're making a NEN ability from a character that is not from Hunter x Hunter, we need to decide what their NEN affinity is going to be, obviously, because that matters. What's the power going to be? So for Ichigo, I decided, not based on his personality, sometimes I stick to the personality and what they should be, and sometimes I go off script and do what I want to do. This is one of the times where I do what I do what I want, right? Everybody does what they want. I'm gonna do what I want. So I decided Ichigo is going to be an emitter. I feel like I've been doing emission abilities a lot lately, but that's because in the manga of Hunter x Hunter right now, like, emission is taking the stand. It's become one of the, they're really diving into emitters and emission abilities, and so I just can't help but be influenced by that. So that's the reason. Ichigo is going to be an emitter, and his Hatsu is going to be an emission ability. Cool, cool. All right, now, what is the name of the Hatsu? Because that's very important. The name of abilities carry on well past the series. They can even surpass the main characters themselves sometimes in special cases. So what is the name of Ichigo's Hatsu? I decided on the name Space Reaper. I know you might not think that's very original or cool. You just took Reaper from Soul Reaper. But what about the space part? Alright? Space Reaper actually fits, and I decided on the name Space Reaper not because he's a Soul Reaper, but because it makes sense with the ability. And speaking of the ability, how we're going to structure this video is that I'm going to tell you what Space Reaper is, what the Hatsu is, how it works, and then after all of that, I'm going to tell you how Ichigo uses it. That's very important. That's perhaps the most important and most integral part to the video. It's the part you want to see, because just because I tell you what the ability is, that doesn't mean that's how Ichigo uses it. It doesn't get utilized on what it is. Take Bungee Gum, for example. You know, Hisoka's ability. Did you actually know that Bungee Gum has both the properties of rubber and gum? Did you know that? That's crazy. I just figured it out. Nah, but in all seriousness, Bungee Gum is described as, you know, transmuting your aura into a substance that has both the qualities of rubber and gum. What does that tell you about Hisoka's fighting style? What does that tell you about Hisoka? It tells you nothing. that ability, rubber and gum, okay, is Hisoka strong? I don't know. If you never knew Hisoka and you knew that was his ability, you'd be like, okay, like, but how Hisoka uses it, sticking it to stuff, contracting to pull stuff to him, pulling himself to things. He can also turn other pieces of material and shape the texture of the surface into what he wants, and then stick it onto his skin and creating like, so it's a really versatile ability. And just because it changed a substance into having a rubber gum substance, that told you nothing about how it was wielded. So that's kind of the same for this ability. It's very, what I'm going to tell you what it is, perhaps is not the same way Ichigo would use it. He may use it for different reasons. All right, so stick with me here. All right, so what is Space Reaper? I know I went on a tangent, but you know, people who like information don't mind that. So what is Space Reaper? All right, I'm just gonna tell you simply what it does without explaining anything, and then I will get into it. So Space Reaper allows Ichigo, or the Hatsu is Ichigo emitting small pockets of space that act as a vacuum. You know what a vacuum is? Like the space, outer space is a vacuum, devoid of all matter. All right, you with me here? All right, so that's just the simple what is Space Reaper. Ichigo emits a small pocket of space that is devoid of all matter, almost all matter, right? Creating a perfect vacuum is, you know, that might be a little out of his wheelhouse, or anybody's, to be honest. So how does the aura do this? How does Ichigo do this? How does this happen with aura? How does it make it happen? So the aura Ichigo emits displaces all the matter inside of the pocket elsewhere, outside of the space he just created, thus creating a space devoid of all matter, or in other words, a vacuum. So when he emits his aura, everything in front of him in the little space that's the same size as the pocket he created, all the matter inside of that gets pushed out elsewhere. And so now there's this pocket of space that is devoid of all matter. It's a vacuum. So that's how he creates vacuums. I know you might be wondering, like, what the hell does it have to do with Ichigo? Because if you are familiar with my work, I tend to stay on brand with their abilities, and then I take a little bit of liberties. But right now, I bet you probably can't tell where I'm going with this. But yeah, he uses his aura to displace matter, basically. Matter doesn't get destroyed and it doesn't get created. So we're not doing this crazy stuff. It just gets moved, which is perfectly feasible for an emission ability. Other people do it. Nav creates pocket dimensions. Terabellum can displace matter and damage itself to different objects. Like emission is the affinity that allows you to manipulate space or move space. So we're working here. We're still on brand. We're not doing anything that's crazy. So yeah, he emits the aura, then the pocket space basically moves all the matter from inside of the whatever size he makes. You can make whatever size. Obviously, he can't make it the size of the planet, and he's not going to be able to do ridiculous stuff, but within Hunter x Hunter power scaling. So keep that in mind. Also, with that, think about, I wanted to add this touch because I think this is a nice touch. When Ichigo displaces all the matter and air inside of the pocket he creates, it tends to make the air around him more dense, thus giving the effect similar to Bleach of people around him feeling the spiritual pressure, the heaviness of the air. So it's the same kind of concept. I thought I'd add that in there. That's a nice touch. Like when Ichigo pulls up and activates his ability, like people are like, whoa, like what's he doing? The air is getting thicker and it's heavier. So we're still going and keeping on brand with who Ichigo is, with immense spiritual pressure, but it's not that. It's just something creating a similar effect. Now, how is it possible? How is it possible for aura to manipulate this space and move matter and all that stuff? We need some conditions, all right? So this is all possible under the condition that the Hatsu cannot displace solid objects. Okay, so if you see this mic, let me hear that. This mic is in front of me. If I use Space Reaper to emit a glob or pocket of aura that's going to displace all the matter, this microphone is made of matter, so in theory it should get displaced. It should be sucked out and moved. But for this Hatsu to work, it doesn't work on solid matter, so the pocket will just form around it. All right, it doesn't affect this microphone, it'll form around it. That's very important to the ability because you're creating the Hatsu and you tell the NEN, yeah, I'm gonna create a vacuum. Vacuums are very dangerous. They can kill people. There's 100%, kill rate. If you jump into a vacuum, you're gonna die. And not just because you can't breathe, but because the low pressures will cause like the liquids in your bodies to boil. You'll die from all types of things, not just suffocation and asphyxiation, whatever you want to call it. But that it's ridiculous. A vacuum is actually insane. It doesn't affect solid objects, and it doesn't affect humans. So the NEN's gonna be like, oh, you created this vacuum, but you took away its strongest effect, that it kills other human beings, and other human beings wield NEN. You would probably need that to defend yourself. Since you're gonna remove that aspect, that's a crazy drawback. Take all this aura and take this boost to your ability. That's how it's going to function and work. So Ichigo's ability, by making and setting the condition that it doesn't work on other people, it will boost the ability immensely. But there are workarounds for that, so we'll get to that in a second. All right, now this ability, let's talk about some little housekeeping things and little tidbits about the ability before we get into how Ichigo uses it. This ability is really strong against other emitters, and it's especially devastating against transmuters. I'll explain it to you. Since the ability is it creates vacuums and displaces things that aren't solid but other matter besides solid matter. If you're an emitter, not all emitters, that's why I said it's strong against emitters, but especially devastating against transmuters, because emitters can emit aura balls that blow up and stuff in other ways, like Zeno's dragon. He could shoot that at Ichigo, but Ichigo uses Space Reaper and it'll just displace all of the aura from around him. So an emitter wouldn't be able to hit him with that type of emission attack. Other emitters don't all fight like that. Some emit their aura into dolls. The dolls are solid objects. They won't get affected by Space Reaper and they could hit them. Transmuters really get the shit into the stick for this, because they transmute their aura into a different substance. They don't make it into solid matter. So like Killua's lightning will get displaced. And then let's say Pain Packer from Phaeton, if he shot the fire sun at him, it wouldn't do anything because it would get displaced by Space Reaper. Okay? And so other thing, Bungee Gum, if he tried to stick Ichigo with Bungee Gum, Space Reaper, and he created a pocket right in front of him, it'd just fly off somewhere and go a different direction. So transmuters are super weak against this, but Space Reaper is weak against things like enhancers, because enhancers use their body. Yeah, it can displace the aura that they've gyoed up into their fist, but they're gonna use Ren, which is just pumping out your aura constantly. So it's gonna keep pushing out. By the time they get to you, it's still gonna be hitting aura out or pushing aura out, and it's gonna hit you and it's gonna do major damage. So they're weak against enhancers, weak against conjurers that create solid objects out of aura, and then manipulators that, use needles and stuff like Illumi, Shalnark to take control. They're weak against stuff like that. And then of course specialist wild card. But yeah, you see what I'm trying to say? Space Reaper, you create not pocket dimensions, but just pockets that are devoid of all matter. So small vacuums that you can contain and manipulate. I know that doesn't really tell you how Ichigo gonna use that, right? Let's get into that, because I know that's what you're waiting for. How does Ichigo use Space Reaper? How is this on brand for what Ichigo does? Even though Ichigo doesn't really have a vast arsenal of techniques or anything like that, it's more like his DNA, that's his power. Bullshit. But we're gonna give him some stuff. We're gonna make Ichigo a cool character with cool abilities. All right, so how does Ichigo use Space Reaper? Very important. I left out some details in what a vacuum actually does, so I could tell you this later on. So the way Ichigo uses Space Reaper is that he makes the little pockets, but he uses the pockets to cover his arm and his blade, because he uses a sword. Obviously, he's still a sword. We're not taking that away from him. He uses Space Reaper to cover his arm and his sword. Why? Because in a vacuum, almost all matter it's non-existent. It's gone. So what else does that mean? There's no friction. Friction is what slows down your movement, be it wind resistance, be it touching something else, being the friction inside of your own body or whatever. But friction slows things down. If he has a vacuum around his arm and the blade, there is no friction. So he can swing insanely fast. So Ichigo's swing speed is like his biggest offensive weapon. It's just almost impossible to see for, power scaling of NEN and aura and all that stuff. If this were obviously Dragon Ball or something, they'd be able to be like, that's slow as hell. But removing friction, who knows? They could reach Dragon Ball and those type of cosmic level feats with that type of speed, just removing something. Just the negation of friction is an insane ability, basically. Ichigo can negate friction upon himself. Ridiculous. So he has insane swing speed that you really can't see. And that makes him really fast. He can also apply it to other body parts. If he wanted to, you know, Space Reaper up his leg and kick really fast, he could do that. So as long as the Space Reaper is moving, it's going to continuously displace the matter that it runs into, which will just let you keep moving super fast as long as you're moving. But when you're still, obviously it's not going to be displacing any matter because it already did when it was emitted. So to make it keep displacing matter, you got to move it. All right, now what he can also do is launch slashes of Space Reaper. Okay, he's an emitter. He can do this. It'll maintain its strength. So if he Space Reaper covers his right arm and his Zanpakuto, and he launches a super fast slash of Space Reaper, it's gonna hit the opponent. Now, I did say that Space Reaper doesn't affect humans, which is still true, but it still can affect the air in their body. So when they get hit with the slash, it doesn't slice them in half like it normally would. It removes all the air from their body, so it creates a similar effect to knocking the wind out of somebody. If you've ever had the wind knocked out of you, you know you're pretty much incapacitated for about 30 seconds to a minute. So imagine Ichigo just and just launching those at you, and I'm pretty sure that would kill you. I'm 100%. It would just, first you get hit with the one, knock the wind out of you, and then it's like being in a vacuum where you can't breathe because you keep getting hit with them and they keep removing the air. Ridiculous ability. So I think that's pretty broken. Along with that comes his sort of medium, like I think this is his strongest technique. You could say this is the Getsuga Tensho, where he just Space Reapers his arm, okay, not the sword. And then he uses regular aura to cover the blade, and then he uses the super swing speed of the arm because it's Space Reapered up. There's no friction acting on the arm, but there is friction acting on the blade. So it won't be as fast as when he uses Space Reaper on both of them, but it's still fast. He does that, launches it, and then launches a regular emission blast or slice, you know, kind of like a dismantle from Sukuna and JJK. He can launch those that will cut you or they will blow up, depending on what Ichigo does with them, because emission blast can blow up as well. So he can do that as well and cut you up. He can also remove the air from your body. So we're already giving him pretty cool and diverse techniques. He has 2 different slashes already that do 2 separate things. Pretty cool. But that's only when he applies Space Reaper to certain parts of his body. There is another way where he shrouds his entire body with Space Reaper. And what this does is vastly increase his speed. Friction is no longer acting upon his body. There's still gravity. Gravity has nothing to do with space. Gravity is more about mass. As long as you have mass, gravity is going to affect you. So he's still on the ground when he does all this stuff, but friction isn't. So it allows him to continuously build up speed as long as he keeps pushing himself faster, which he does because he's pushing off the ground when he runs. So shrouding his body in Space Reaper will give him that super speed effect, probably surpass anybody in the Hunter x Hunter verse in speed. Maybe you could argue Meruem, because Meruem would have more aura than Ichigo because he's not even human. And if you want to say Ichigo has all the different races, well, he doesn't in Hunter x Hunter, unless you want to make Ichigo a half ant, which I probably could have. That would have been a nice touch to the video. I'm not restarting the video. I don't give a fuck because I don't even fuck with Ichigo like that. So I'm not going to gas him like that. But anyways, he would be one of the fastest in the verse, if not the fastest with this ability. Friction is not acting upon him. You might be wondering, Kite, he's in a vacuum. He can't breathe. You shouldn't be able to breathe. That's not possible. Well, you're right. But when he creates this Space Reaper bubble around his body, or Space Reaper aura around his body, the Space Reaper aura will displace some of the oxygen it moves into the lungs for him. So he doesn't even have to breathe. He's constantly getting oxygen fed into his lungs, but under the condition that he's always moving. So if he stands still, he won't be able to breathe while shrouded in Space Reaper. But as long as he's moving, oxygen will keep getting displaced a little bit into his lungs. So as long as he's moving around and fighting, he'll be good. He can breathe. But if he stands still, he'd have to deactivate the ability after like 30 seconds or however long he could hold it. I'd say 30 seconds because realistically, when you're moving around, you can't hold your breath as long as when you're just being still. So I'd say about 20 to 30 seconds he could stand still, shrouded in Space Reaper, but there's no need for him to stand still in the first place. Also, when he shrouds himself in Space Reaper, he can negate all poisons and aerial and viral infections because everything that would come into the Space Reaper will get immediately displaced out. It's a vacuum, nothing's in there. And it's not just the creating a vacuum. A part of this ability is shoving everything out. Not just the absence, but the action of pushing everything out. Everything's constantly getting pushed out to maintain the vacuum. That's the aura's job that it's doing. That's why it cost Ichigo a lot of energy to make, because it's constantly doing that. All right. Now for the third way, he can shroud others with this. This is not really that cool of an aspect of it, but think about this. It doesn't act on people. So the Space Reaper will not act as a real vacuum and then kill the person by boiling their blood and then making their eyes pop out of their head or whatever a vacuum would do to a human body. It wouldn't be pretty. I know that much. But if he chokes you down or gets on you, gets a hold on you, whatever, let's just say he's holding someone on the ground, he's on top of him, whatever, and he's holding his hand on his neck, pushing him down. If he emits the Space Reaper aura more, increases the size, and it shrouds the person he's holding, they won't be able to breathe. There's no air. Okay, and he can breathe because he can just move it off of his head, and then that's it. Because he had to cover his head to move in the first place. Because imagine moving your body, friction's not acting upon your body, but it is your head, and he flash steps or whatever you call it from Bleach. What's the name for it? Damn, I can't remember. Anyways, he flash steps, and then his head is still has friction upon it. He just snaps his neck by taking one step, because friction is not acting on his body, but it's acting on his head. But so he can just move it off of his head, hold the dude down, and keep the air from getting to him. Easy kill like that. But, you know, he won't be able to kill everybody like that. But weaklings, he should be able to smoke like that pretty easily. It's Ichigo. So, yeah, that's the ability. He can emit pockets, cover his arm and his sword to make his swings and slashes move at insane rates. He can cover his blade in regular aura and his arm in Space Reaper aura, and then launch slices that actually slice people. And he can also launch slashes of Space Reaper aura that remove the air from people's lungs and the space around them, depending on how big it is. That's like the Getsuga Tensho or Getsuga Jujisho, whichever you want to assign to whichever one is whatever. You can also cover his whole body, let him flash step, as they say, move really fast. And then he can also remove the air from people by just choking them and shrouding them in the Space Reaper aura. So let me know your thoughts on this ability. If you would have given Ichigo a different ability, if you can't think of one on the fly, and type it down in the comments, I'd be open to read it. I'm not gonna lie. If anybody has good ideas, you can join my Discord or shoot me a comment. Hey, if your idea is good, man, I'll try to tackle it, and I'll even give you credit. I just want to do these videos and all that stuff and just get a bunch of people on these videos so we can talk and discuss about, you know, crossing over abilities, who would be good here. Would Ichigo be a good NEN user? I probably don't think he would. I think NEN users would be more like martial artists, people with like really good discipline and stuff like that. Not so much people that rely on like their DNA and lineage. So even Naruto would be good, but anybody you can name that like their lineage and stuff like that would overtake their actual hard work and stuff, they probably wouldn't be a good NEN user. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this ability. What do you think of Space Reaper? What would Ichigo's real NEN affinity be? Like, if we based it on his personality and Hisoka's personality type quiz, all that stuff, and suggest other characters you want to see crossed over from other verses. Doesn't have to be Hunter x Hunter, and it doesn't have to be a Bleach character. Obviously, it can be from any combo, but it has to be interesting. Don't get on here spitting bullshit and leaving your bias in and seeing characters that, or it's suggesting characters that no one wants to see. Like, don't say fucking who's an annoying character? Usopp, bro. Nobody wants to see that shit. I'm not gonna lie. Usopp with a NEN ability. Give his ass a quirk. Get his ass a quirk. He doesn't deserve a NEN ability. He wouldn't even be able to use NEN. Keep it a stack. All right. So keep in mind stuff like that, like little nuances when you suggest stuff, if you want to. You don't have to. But yeah, that's the video, guys. Leave a like. hey, drop 200 likes. I don't even have any subscribers. I'm gonna be ridiculous and ask for like 200 likes, and hey, whoever has the most like comment of their suggestion, I'll do that video next. No ifs, ands, or buts. And as long as it's within reason. But yeah, 200 likes. Probably won't get 200 likes, but that's all right because I don't have any subscribers. But hey, we can hope for the best. I will hope to see you in the next one, guys. But remember, I don't fuck with Ichigo like that, and that's okay. But don't hate me for it because I don't hate you. Peace.
君の気持ちを大事にしなかった私の頭